Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another interview with a vampire. This time we are here with Rebecca, the player behind Emory. And just like last time, I have a couple of questions. And the first one, which is always interesting to me, is how did you get into tabletop RPGs?
I started probably 10, 15 years ago getting into Warhammer. And so that is something that has a tabletop component, but they also have an RPG game as well. So that's where I started. And there is a lot of lore there
Yeah.
and a lot of gritty things involved that I enjoy. And I kind of slowly made my way to other TTRPGs. And yeah.
I mean, it's funny with Warhammer. That's actually the first, because usually it's Dungeons and Dragons for people. Uh, what kind of made you go from the fantasy to horror? Was it much later, or kind of simultaneously, or was it just
I
a?
didn't play D&D probably until the 2020 when I saw a posting. I I like online I'll tell people that I'm 1% D&D, 99% everything else just because I started in Warhammer, and so I'm not saying that it set a bar, but it definitely speaks to me, and so finding game systems that are more in line with that, like I can handle the crunchy math. I can handle, having a million dice. I can handle, knowing the differences between different space marines, and so
Yeah.
when it comes to that, I don't want to say that I dislike D&D. However, I I try to play 10 game systems a year. That's like my personal goal. And so like in this last month I played Werewolf the Apocalypse, Hunter the Reckoning, Vampire, and I'm going to be playing Wraith this weekend. So for me, I'm knocking off like 4 games, in a month period there, but I've also played other games just because there's so many on the market. And I lean towards the darker side of things. I like the things that go bump in the night, and I listen to a podcast that has that's based on Delta Green, and I have played with uh, GMs in other game systems or storytellers that are into Call of Cthulhu. So having this ethos is something that I'm more into. Yeah, there you go. I wish I had my thing. I have somewhere. There's something. I have something to that. But yeah.
Side question then, because you brought it up. How did you find Werewolf? Because I haven't played it yet, or like even looked at the book.
We did a one shot, and it's interesting. I will say that when it comes to the World of Darkness, I found it through TikTok, and the server that I played on was kind of a West Marches server with the St. P by Night community, and they were 100% vampire until Hunter was released,
Yeah.
and they are slowly allowing people to play games, but we are 100% V5.
Okay.
And so for me, I don't have V20 or anything before that uh, to go off of. So for me, doing the one shot, it was interesting, much different than Vampire and Hunter for me. The game is interesting. I like the lore. The book is beautiful. I have like 2 copies right next to me. The paper that they use in the book, the artwork, it's all fantastic. As far as gameplay, I love a D10 system. So for me, that's one of the things that I like about the Spots of the World of Darkness is that when you look at the character sheet for one game versus the other, you have your 3 columns. So it makes it a lot easier to transition between each of their games because your skills and your attributes, even if they have different names, it's going to be, something from here, something from here.
Yeah, yeah.
If it's
It's
not your skill and your discipline, it's going to be, insert game
and
game.
you will have something that gives you red dice. I think what was it called in Hunter? Desperation.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And danger on top of that. And instead of disciplines, you have your creeds. And I imagine Werewolf is kind of similar. To me, it seems like they're eventually will have all of it, and they will be interchangeable in a way.
Yeah, we had really hoped. So if you've played World of Darkness before in previous editions, it was not balanced.
No.
If you went, insert this versus that, it was a clear clear indication of who would win, so like if you put like, the most min-max character, you know what I mean? If
Yeah.
you maxed out character here and character here, there's no way that, whether it be hunter or wraith versus changeling versus vampire, you would know it just wasn't, I wouldn't say not a fair fight, but you could, the outlier. We had hoped that maybe in this game in V5 that there would be more I don't want to say backwards compatible, but the ability to insert different splats into other games without having to fudge the numbers enough.
Yeah.
And so with Hunter being out as long as it is and kind of looking at everything that's available, it's it's not like, if you had the way that they've made Hunter, they're just pretty OP. I mean, they get like drones with shotguns or like machine guns, like
I think
you just get
I played something that could hack into anything and open every door, but you die pretty fast. But it felt, at least the one I wasn't a player in, it felt pretty Call of Cthulhu in a way, because everything is scary and you'll die like that because aggravated damage from everything. But yeah, I get what you mean, that they're trying to balance it out. There's always gonna be some indiscrepancies, I think. Like werewolves are here when they start and vampires are here, and eventually a vampire will kind of, but I don't think most people play elders and will get to that point. So werewolves are always going to be scary. Can't wait to get into the book myself, that's for sure.
super awesome. I think yeah, where it comes to hunter and vampire, what we've kind of found is that, if you had 5 and 5, Hunter probably would have the edge on taking them, but if Vampire had a head start or was able to ambush, there'd be no way.
Yeah.
If the basis of Hunter is planning and education and getting head start, if they don't have that, they do not have anything.
I mean, it's called you're hunting, you're not killing. It's about the hunt. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I think that's something that's kind of difficult, especially, I don't want to say especially for, but we've had a lot of players who come in with a D&D mindset, where it's just like, this is my encounter.
Yeah.
And so in the World of Darkness, it's a little more nuanced. It's like you have to make use of your hunger. You have to mix, where in the World of Darkness, we have flaws and we have convictions, and you have to think of these things, and, choices have consequences.
It was so confusing when I got into it. It's like, what are all these things? Touchstones, ambition, desire. It seemed completely irrelevant to me, and I was shit on Reddit for asking questions, because I was D&D and I'm coming over, and it's there's no, like, the only thing they have in common is they're tabletop RPGs and you use dice, but that's about it. It's very, very different. What was your... Sorry?
Oh, continue.
What's
the question?
I was just... what was your... How were you introduced to the World of Darkness? What was your first kind of thing? Or how did you go down the rabbit hole?
It was on TikTok. I joined TikTok, and there were some people who were like, yeah, we're going to start the server. We're going to do this like virtual LARP of West Marches, where, we had, 15 open channels, and then everyone was divided by clans. Everyone got weekly clan meetings. And so you could go into open RP, kind of like a LARP, and play. And so at that time, I didn't know anything about the World of Darkness. This is 2 years ago that we started, October of 21, and the game started in January of 2022. So the game had a lot of players to start, 100 plus people interested in playing. We had 10 to 20 people who wanted to play each clan.
Yeah,
it was chaotic. It was chaotic. And so when I came in, I said, I want to play a werewolf, because I wasn't familiar with the world and the lore. I was just like, well, werewolves and vampires go together, so I want to play a werewolf. They're like, that's a different game and it's not out yet. And I'm like, why can't you just put it in? And because I hadn't, at that point, I didn't have as much experience, storytelling or being a DM. I didn't understand, because I know, like, in this server, our server, we have rules as written. We're very clear. We have minimal homebrew, and it was only within like the last 6 months of the game that we started putting in homebrew things, because we're like, not saying anything about the way certain books are written for a particular game, but sometimes the way things are written can be a little bit left up for interpretation.
Yeah.
And so we have found that, and then contradictory on another.
Yeah, and you can get the. Sometimes I don't know how to describe it really, but it's like they haven't had players before, like they're expecting something that will never ever happen. Like for example, the now we can talk about it because this will not be a. By the way, if you haven't seen episode 16, spoilers. Um, Diablerie, for example, is a weird role, and the amount of experience you get, and I figured out pretty fast that people are not going to do it. It's not worth it if it's left up to chance. So I kind of just said it's 10 XP per blood potency, because then it will like give players a clear advantage, or at least a benefit for losing their humanity. So it's things like that. Or I found some rituals as well where they don't destroy, like the Emory was hit by a necrophage, and it does not tell you in the Inquisition book what the difficulty to resist it is. It only tells you how long it will last. So I had to kind of like figure out the role, and it's like they forgot it because every other biological weapon had it. So yeah, I totally get what you mean. Sometimes you do have to homebrew, but I also agree with try to stick to what's written if possible.
Yeah, and we found that to be true. Have you read the most recent release of the Blood Sigils book?
I've skimmed through it, the PDF, but it's still, I have to pick it up tomorrow, and then I can finally I just went to the rituals immediately just to see what was there, if there was anything cool. But I have not gone through it fully, unfortunately.
I think the Blood Sigils book and the Player's Guide are good examples of things that are kind of contradictory to the core book. Not because they are supplemental, but some of the things, it's like they open up things that may not be lore, or they may not be in line with lore. And also there's some things like where we were discussing, say, Oblivion with Hakata and La Sombra.
Yeah.
And there's some of those things that it's just, this is where Oblivion is concerned. There's some things that are very La Sombra in lore, but the way V5 is written, it doesn't specify who can take it. Anyone can take it. So some of them do, but not all of them. So, I'd say that, was it Arms of Honoron? I think
Yeah.
historically has been La Sombra.
Yeah, you're because Oblivion is a big place, and La Sombra, I think they pull from the Abyss, which is a certain layer, and yeah, they don't learn ceremonies, they don't have ghosts, they don't do undeads, but they're working with shadows. But technically, if you have potence, you can do it.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that we kind of went in, and so it's kind of like rules as intended versus rules as written. Kind of like, we put it in there. It's like, this is a Hakata thing.
Yeah.
Thematically, potentially we could see La Sombra doing this, or thematically or lore wise, we could see Hakata doing that. But it's like in some of the situation, there's some smoothie.
Yeah, the Coldonic sorcery.
Yeah. And so if you read the Blood Sigils book, it kind of goes back and forth between like the cult and like clan, and some of it's kind of like, well, not that everyone wants to play that clan, however. Where some of their
I think they had similar issues with the salubri powers as well at some point. Like you have auspice, you have fortitude. Okay, I want to be the healer, and the coterie, I want to take this, but salubri are so rare that you have to have a very good reason to have acquired these powers, because, and then they changed the level from one book to another, and it can be confusing, and there's so many optional or extended rules that it can be hard to keep track of, for sure.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things to consider too is because I play a Nosferatu, so one of the interesting things that I found was that in the in the core book, it was released before the player's guide,
Mm.
and it says that in the core book there were only two looks merits that you could take, beautiful and stunning. And for Nosferatu, because of their clan Bane and the way that they're written, you are not allowed to take a clan or a looks merit.
No.
However, when they released the player's guide, there's a bunch of looks merits that don't have to do with your looks necessarily, which is interesting because when you take the alternate Bane that has nothing to do with looks, it's like, well,
Yeah. I think
why?
I could be mistaken here, but I think if you have a flaw in a certain category, technically you cannot choose a merit or an advantage in that. But it's a good point. For Emory is a perfect example because she's not fugly, so she could technically have like all of the looks thing, and I think you could have a, because it's no longer masquerade breachy necessarily, so you could have other things that benefits your looks even though you're repulsive or whatever they call it, like looking innocent or I can't remember what's in there, but yeah, I definitely know something's there. That's why you have always ask your GM. Always ask your GM.
Right, right.
Most of them will say reason. Um, Talking about Emory, what was your inspiration for Emory, if any?
I was in a conversation once where we were talking kind of about joke characters a little bit, and so I thought that it would be so. I would say early aughts, mid 2000s, just like, scene kids. And so I thought, where we're talking about Nosferatu being covering their face, or they'll oftentimes when you see people who are playing Nosferatu, they'll cover their face or their disfigurement will be their face. Other people will do things like a club foot or a hunchback or a missing eye or missing a pendant. They'll just do random things. And so I had originally thought, like, who covers their face? Like, what is a way to cover the face? Like, who would cover their face? And I was like, oh, scene kids used to have like those huge bangs where they would just like be covered. And I
Mm,
was like, oh, that'd be pretty funny. And then also I thought, one of the things that people did like back in the MySpace days or early, I don't know, Tumblr days, people would hold up little signs that said RAR,
yeah,
or they'd have, and so I thought, Nosferatu would be a play on words, which I think is silly, but it worked. And so in the variety of, joke characters we were talking about, it kind of worked. And so I played her as an NPC, as a storyteller in a one shot. She was a sweeper, anarch sweeper, and I kind of built her to be more bruisery because I thought that'd be kind of silly. Also, I'm like, just put jokes on jokes here, like not only she's like this like meek little scene kid, but she'll kill you. So that was the inspiration, but I only played her for about 45 minutes.
yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so then when you had put out originally for this game the plans that you were interested in having join the coterie that already existed, I sent you like 10 different ideas. And I think the first five, you're like, well, these have already been played in the cam or they're already being played in this game. So I sent you like the five more, and you're like, we don't have a NOS, and this would make sense in here because I kind of reconfigured her to being a theater kid
Mm,
who was behind the scenes. And I was like, well, London theater, etc. It makes sense. It's more thematic. Also, where the party was concerned, having someone who could do more tech stuff was fine. And I'd played a tech character in another clan, a La Sombra, before, so I'm like, okay, now I
that's
can actually
hard.
play. I had a ghoul. I had we had three ghouls, so we were able to negate our bane, which was fun. But yeah, that was a fun character to play. She basically used the free computers at Best Buy, and when she couldn't figure it out, there was no way to trace her. And also, she could get like the Geek Squad. She like ghoul. There was like a ghoul from Geek Squad. It was a whole thing. It was very silly. But I figured, I can do a tech character again, but at least this time I won't be disadvantaged because I won't have a clan bane working against me, and I don't have a ghoul that I have to rely on or my sire. I can
Mm.
just get in the computers and get her done.
I think, if I remember correctly, in the beginning, Emory is supposed to have a crooked spine and be a little bit wobbly, like a duck. But the player's guide had just come out, and I don't know. I think I said something like, "Well, what about this shit with pigeons?" Because we're in London. It's not really been a big thing yet, but I'm still waiting for that messy crit that'll just swarm the place, or a bestial failure rather. Oh yeah.
Well, with the roles that we've had in some of our games, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah. And sometimes I brush over it, but that's just because I can't deal with this right now. I just want to move the story along, and this is gonna fuck everything up. Like you're in a taxi and you have 3 bestial failures. It's like whatever. You don't see anything. We'll move along. This is, I'm not gonna waste half an hour of you guys eating each other in a car. That sounded dirtier than I meant it, but
It's not with the Hakata. No, it's
yeah.
everything's.
Um, um, sorry, just my notes here. We played 8 sessions so far, I think, or 16 episodes for the people at home. What has been some of your favorite moments that we have gone through? That just maybe something that jumps into your mind.
There's been so many. I think the recently it was a lot of fun doing the bank heist. I think that that was a lot of fun because I think that we definitely, spoiler alert, so if you haven't watched it yet, we split the party. However, we were able to independently do what we needed to. So I think that that was a really good session, not because we were necessarily smart about what we were doing, but we were within what our character would do, but not at the expense of the party. Because oftentimes I see sometimes when people split a party, it's because they have their own ambition, their own goals, and it jeopardizes the coterie. And I think one of our chronicle tenets is like coterie before ambition or something. And so
Don't mess with the pack.
yeah, don't mess with the pack. And I think that that was like a really good episode because we did put thought into it with like our our C4 underneath, and we were able to get in there and do things, and it wasn't necessarily clean either. Like lives were lost,
Yeah.
and like I it wasn't like a clean in and out, but I think that it was very true to how the party functions, whether it's in a social setting or a physical setting, because there's some in the party like Emory who's not physical. She's not physical at all. And I don't like the disciplines that she has are not going towards physical. So within Nosferatu, she could be going in and getting, claws and things like that, but I'm not. I'm going more towards controlling in the animalism route. So for Emory, she's like, I'll go. I'll be the tech girl. I'll drive. Um, but I think that was a highlight. It was just a really good session. I think another highlight was a few sessions ago when we had the book signing scene.
Mm.
I think that was funny because I think that it was it was like organized chaos. Like I feel like we're new enough that we're like, okay, someone's telling us, and then you have, you know, Luke coming in telling them to, go fuck themselves, basically.
Organized chaos should be your tagline. Definitely.
Basically, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So I think that that was a really good thing because we were still new. That was early enough on
Mm.
that, we haven't really discussed our sires. We haven't talked about touchstones. We just showed up and we're there. We're in the basement. There's a guy in a bathtub now. I don't know, like, Um, so we
Oh,
have that going, and I think that that was a good thing because it really gave us the opportunity to work together independently. And there was a little bit of cover up where, like, I don't know, Luke was like on the ceiling or some shit, and we're like, nope, there's no other guy, we don't know.
mm.
And so then he appeared, and then he then told him to go fuck himself after he did. So you know, I think that was a good highlight. Another one.
Oh, it was a good scene again. I think it was Dave and Luke who was very hesitant, and it fucked over the whole group. But instead of turning on each other, you just, double down on screw the Camarilla. We're gonna get these guys back, or at some point. And I have to say, I love having Emory in the party, constantly just fucking USB install everything she can go. Like, I'm showing it in game as the spy master or the other Norse, like patting her on the head. Good girl, like you're doing awesome. Like just, and it's gonna really benefit you at some point. I can say already without spoiling too much, but yeah, keep doing that. And you don't have to have everyone be a fighter. Like for example, the guys went to kill Yaroslav, and she just went behind the counter and hit, because that's fine. She's not a fighter. She controls animals, and she dominates, and she's good with tech. But she's also the one that says to the other guys, "We need to fucking get out of here." She's the check the situation kind of girl, at least in my mind.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too playing a Nosferatu, because my character style is usually more support, but not necessarily like main healer. Like I'm not the one who's like, I'm like, you know what, do or do not, I don't care. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, she's and Nosferatu is interesting because I'm very like I can get into the Nosferatu headset and be like, this is what a would do. But if I was playing another game, I'm like, I would not do this in insert game here. I would be, I'd be on the front line, or I would be here. I would not be risking myself in any way. And I would be very cautious, or not wanting anyone to be in danger. And Nosferatu is an interesting clan, especially in London specifically, where the Cam and Anarchs are concerned, because Nosferatu are very or clan oriented. And so it's like, I don't care what sect you're in, you're with us.
Yeah.
And so, it's an interesting thing I didn't know about for the others, because we're all, recently embraced, new to the world of darkness, more or less. And so, it's one thing in the world of darkness in vampire to learn about what does it mean to be an anarch, what does it mean to be a camarilla where accounting is concerned. But Nosferatu are just like, you know you're here, you're with us.
A clan before sect. And
And so it's interesting.
you have Emory in the Anarchs now, and seems pretty. Uh, I wouldn't say loyal, but she's in with the clan. You have Eliza. You met her for a brief moment in the Outcasts. You have I think Henry in the Cam, and they have a finger in every pie now, and of course the Spy Master in the Cult of Mithras. So, as information brokers go, they're doing a good job, and it will cost. They will share freely amongst each other, but if people outside the clan they want to have something, it's gonna come with a price. That's for sure. And even that scene where you went down to get a map of the bank and other things, and Henry was there, and he's technically Camarilla, but just because you're Anarch, and he did not want to know, and it's just, I'm out, see ya, because clan before sect. I'm not gonna know anything I can tell to other people and all that. It really helps me out also to give you guys information you might need as a storyteller that you wouldn't otherwise be privy to without expending major boons on this kind of information.
Right. And I think that's the other thing, is going back to the USB comment. I've been trying to keep that from the coterie. Like I've been doing it on the side, and there's only one potential person who could potentially say that they knew something was going on. But even then, I don't know if he was paying attention because I was behind a counter. So I'm curious when that will come up, if it does, because I don't think she would tell the coterie. Like that wasn't between them. That's not for them. She'll utilize that information to help them, but I don't think that she would be in there. I will say though that it, like for future stuff, I think that she potentially feels bad about putting it on the computer in the Fight Club.
Yeah, on Josh's PC. Yeah, yeah. Poor
I
Josh.
was thinking, yeah. I was like, I wonder if I could like, I need to get some resource dots so that I can like buy him a new computer and be like, listen, I need you to use this PC only and use that for Minecraft only.
Yeah, yeah.
No questions asked. Don't ask me why. Just a gift. Totally trustworthy, right? Like,
Question is, will you care if, when, because we're kind of maybe joining the cult of Mithras, if Emory decides that she can stomach it,
stomach what?
sacrificing a touchstone?
I was looking at my touchstones, and I think one of them she would be okay with before the other one. Because the other one is from her childhood and one's from her adult life. So I would say that the one that's from her childhood, who she's still in contact with,
Yeah,
essentially, she would probably have more of an issue with. Whereas the other one, I think, was like someone connected to uh, school. It was like a professor or something. And I did think about this. I thought either way, I don't think she would kill them. I think that she would ghoul them or embrace them.
yeah,
She would rather have them embraced and be with her than just outright killing them. And I think that she would be willing where information's concerned. So Nosferatu, as I understand it, they embrace individuals for particular reasons, like most clans. And so I could see where professor is concerned. There's an aspect of knowledge that would be useful for the Nos within London to have that.
yeah,
Whereas the other person's like a childhood friend, like that's not going to benefit her to kill them. Nor are they. I think they're just like a barista or something. Like that's not like someone a Nos would necessarily go for. Whereas the other one has information.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. And sometimes it's just a prank on beautiful people, which is
Yeah, it can be revenge. It can either be for an advantage or revenge to drop someone down.
it's like Amelia, I think her name is, in Bloodlines. She used to be a model or an actress or something, and then she was embraced into the Norse, and she's still wearing the dresses and everything even through the sewers. But I think she's pretty butthurt over losing her appearance. It seems that way for sure. Another question. First of all, I can't wait to get to the actual scene of getting into Mithras, because most people, I feel, they don't know the intricacies of the cult and what it actually requires to be a part of it and what you will get out of it, because it does come with some huge benefits. But talk about some of your favorite moments. Can you come up with like a oh shit moment where you thought, okay, now everything's gonna go to shit's gonna hit the fan, or something that became a little bit scary, maybe?
Specifically with Mithras or the entire time?
Just the game, all the sessions.
Mm, I think a couple stand out for me. The first one would be probably maybe the first session when you took the power out of the train. I was like, what the like we're getting into it, I guess. Like I don't know them, they don't know me, we don't know one another. So if we have to fight right now, I can't fight.
Yeah,
I'm new. I don't know where I'm going. So this is it. This is how we start. Just go big and we're going somewhere. So that was honestly, I was like, oh no, about that. I think that was a little nerve-wracking. The other one that was kind of nerve-wracking probably was the situation under the college with the kind, the cult not cult
yeah.
situation. I thought that was where I thought the one episode I was talking about where we were split but organized. I felt like that one um in character was going well, but I think that we had a couple absences out of character leading up to it. So we knew what we were doing and we were appraised of it, but I think that was a little more disjointed where we were split compared to other ones where we've split up. So
Yeah.
that was a little nerve-wracking. I think that, and then the other one that I could say is probably when we were in the room with the elders, because I totally would have swapped the blood out if I had the opportunity.
Yeah,
Like if
yeah.
I had, as a player, had thought, like I totally, as a player, would have taken the blood on the taxi ride over or whatever on the walk and put her own blood in, knowing that would have been a bad thing, but knowing like elder blood and what that could potentially do would have been a lot of fun, but also the like repercussions of that. But like I was saying it in the room, and you're like heightened senses is the thing. You're like, no, you cannot do this. Like that would have like derailed some things for sure. But I think that, saying that and just like giving zero Fs about it anyways
Mm.
was fun, but also scary because, and I think that the faces of everyone on that episode in particular, I don't know which one it is, but if you look at the faces of everyone where like, because we had already gone through and I'd said like, oh, let me put the blood in here. And you're like, you had said like the other NPC was like, no, 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 you cannot do that. And then later, because I knew that they had heightened senses on, I had whispered by myself, like, I want to join. And everyone else like couldn't hear that in character, but out of character is like, what the
Yeah.
what? Like using that to the advantage of myself knowing they could hear me. And then you like just like right away were like, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome to join. And everyone's like, well, like
Like
you just
all
have this
all the all the heroes of sun, heroes of the sun, just turning towards Emory and just like, yep. And nobody else knows what's going on. Yeah, that was a fun moment.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just edited it, so it's fresh in my mind. The people's faces, like, fuck.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Everyone's like, what? Because I feel like that is a scary moment because like knowing out of character what it is, but in character just being this like baby Nos who's like, let me get in here for information because they put information before safety.
Mm.
So they're like, well, these people. So Emery's position is they know things. They're on the inside on that side, and I don't have it in. And this is presented to me, and I'm not smart enough to know that there's other cults.
And
I'm not smart enough to know that there could be other protection.
I think another carrot, or whatever you want to call it, Emery wants a very certain theater that's located in the cult's domain, um, which is something else that she might get up to at some point.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. So when I originally started this, I had this like theater thing. So she's from London, went to Paris for safety, and then got brought back. But she is established with theaters, but not knowing the World of Darkness or the Masquerade or who has what or sect or anything. She didn't know where the city was or who had what. And so the domain or the area, the section of the city where her theater and her connections are within Mithras
Mm.
and close to SI. And so it is like the least safe place in London for her to go back to.
I'll be fine.
More than one way in.
Yeah, all hail the sun.
Yeah, that's like another interesting thing too is that my favorite V5 book so far is Cult of the Blood Gods, and they go into a lot of Cult of Mithras. I mean, there's a lot of information on it, anyways, uh, and knowing an extensive amount about Ventru, I also know about Mithras, but it's like out of character is boring to me. Like that, not boring, but like there's a lot of lore there, and it's very well thought out and laid out. But of the cults available, I'm like, I'd rather go over here or over there, And so, but like in this game, it makes sense, and so I'm like, let's go, let's do it. Nosferatu joining Mithras. This is interesting, but very in character.
The reason if for people that don't know, maybe you don't either, it's somewhere over there. The Fall of London. When I got into Vampire, that was I didn't know how to write a story or anything like that. So because I came from AD&D, so we played through that, and the group I had, they were Hells of the Sun, and they were very committed. They were completely fanatical. There's NPCs in my game now. It's the Harry and the Spy Master and the Brew Girl and Sylvester, and they kind of set the baseline for my World of Darkness, and that's why it's just like it seems like I have a hard on for Mithras, but it's just because that's where the game started, and it also he's fascinating to me because he's 3,500 years old. He's still walking around, and he's had control of Britain for like 1,000 years. I mean, he took a nap at some point, but then he at least the way, I mean, it can end in like 6 different ways, but the way they ended it, he rose to his original power. And I also find Roger de Camden fascinating, so that's why they're still in control, at least in my setting. I understand people do it differently, some other, but you're right about the other cults being, I don't know if they're more interesting, but I understand they're gripping in a different kind of way, because Mithras is very rooted in Roman reality and not necessarily being very vampiric, and being a sun god is also kind of weird when you're talking vampires. Yeah.
Maybe boring's the maybe it's just
Less interesting.
Thematically it makes sense.
Yeah.
It is one of the lands that I think that has gone through different versions of vampire. So I think like historically it has its place for a good reason. The tie to Roger de Camden also interesting, being a hedonist, but also because there's an element of brutality in London and how everything went down and how that impacted everybody else.
It blew up the world, right? Second Inquisition. Because Mithras was butthurt. Nobody knows this in game, but yeah, Mithras started the Second Inquisition in the lore, because Queen Anne had taken his throne during his little nap. Yeah.
So in your world, and I don't know if this is going to be a spoiler for our game, where is Queen Anne for you?
Dead and gone. The heralds made very sure of that. Her sire was allowed, I think, because you meet like a lot of different elders through the fall of London, and Valerius, Queen Anne's sire, I think he was the only one they didn't diablerize. They made a deal with him about him getting on a plane, and they would blow up the plane, but he was not actually on the plane. And then the Banu Hakim player, Harry, he said, "I'll come for you later one day." And we never got that far, but Queen Anne is, she's very dead in my games.
Out like a light.
Yeah, because they made very sure of it, but the book leaves it up for interpretation, as most VTM books actually. It's all hearsay and rumors, and you can kind of do it your own way, which I like.
So. Now, I know that you have the Cult of Mythos in there, but we technically have a couple other cults that you've kind of like put in there. So do you want those to be explored more, or like what's your intention with those?
Like the Outcasts, again, player group. My wife and my real life friends, or whatever you want to call them, the people I play with in front of. And who else is there? I made like 50 vampires for this world, but they're all just there in case you need them. I mean, I can't force you to interact with them, but it's just information and allies and whatever people think they're interested in. The Camarilla, obviously, that was the other game, because I started with Cult of Mithras, then then was the Camarilla, and Alex as my prince, still prince, and that kind of formed London and the political schism, I want to call it. Mm-hmm. And the Outcast, completely autarkis. The Horsemen, that was a group that I was a player in, and our storyteller was the guy who played Harry. And he passed away, unfortunately, so I brought them in to honor him, and also because I love Nemesis. It is one of my favorite characters to play. She's mean, she's cruel, she's a badass. Nobody ever trusts her, even though they have no reason not to, because she will adhere to her deals, and she will ask a lot of you, but she will give you things in return. But yeah, she has the same effect on every player. They're always like, they meet her, and within 5 minutes, like, I don't trust that bitch for some reason. So it's a mix of characters I've played in different groups, and I just brought it all into London, and I have different timelines where things are happening, but I'm connecting that through Justicar Craven, who is, nobody knows this, but she's true Bruhar, and they can manipulate time, and I kind of make a canon that way, that everything is together but happens in parallel universes and all that. People don't need to think about it, but it's there in the background for me to mess with. So yeah, it's a mix of what do I need, what do the players need, and what have I interacted with in the past, and just bring it all into one world. But unfortunately, I think I'll be going somewhere else when we're done with this.
What do you mean?
I think maybe into the past, into the Dark Ages is the next thing. That's either that or into the future. I haven't decided yet. I think both could be fun. But I'm working on a campaign that's going to stretch over 1100 years. But it's a lot of reading. It's going to take a lot of time to prepare.
So you don't want to do Werewolf in London?
It could be interesting, but I have zero knowledge about werewolves other than vampires don't like them, and they don't like vampires, and they are very, at least in my mind, druidic, in touch with nature, and I use them as adversaries. But mechanically and systematically, could be fun though. I don't know if it'll grip me. I think, yeah, it could be fun because I have a werewolf pack. The only thing I'm never gonna touch is Changeling. That never, resonated with me in any way. It's just preference. Major.
I just played Changeling for the first time last week. It was interesting. It was V20 because they don't have it for V5. If they will do it, we don't know. Maybe in 20 years. But yeah, it was interesting. I could see like the similarities between how V20 jumps up to V5. So there are some similarities. I was playing a Puka something. I don't even remember. Something. And it was Halloween night. And it was interesting because the interesting thing is that with that in Changeling, the Puka, they have to lie. So every time you're asked a question, you can't tell the truth, which is interesting where in other games you're working together. And so, it's just, I just ended up being silly about it because I'm like, I don't,
Do you have any experience with Wraith?
No, but I'm going to be playing that this weekend for the first time.
Yeah, fair enough. I saw a stream at some point. It's just, damn, you have to be mature about it because you're basically like you're playing someone else's shadow or what's equivalent to a beast, and you basically have to abuse your friends, which is usually my job. But it looks fun though. I played a VR version of it to get a sense of Oblivion and how they see it, but it is interesting. I can't wait till all the systems are converted. And I would like to see the return of Bali. I don't know why, but seems everyone has just forgotten about the Bali. Yeah, but
do you have an idea of why?
I don't know, maybe the daimonium thing. It's the same with like they make the Sabbat book, but it's not meant for players. So maybe they're trying to stray people away from the super evil thing, and I mean the remote paths and roads as well. So like you subscribe to the road of humanity. That's it. I made house rules to get around this, but as Emory will soon find out. But because yeah, that's another thing. If you go on Mithra's path, the Chronicle tenets will no longer apply to you, because you will no longer be on the road of humanity. But that's that's another mechanical discussion.
So that's an interesting thing too, because I didn't know until I think the last session that someone else had made comments, and I don't know, spoiler alert, someone else had made comments about joining Mithras for a very particular reason. So I think that that was interesting because I've made comments in more than one session, and you and I have been sending DMs because we have a private DMs, and I think I messaged you like back in August, like a couple months ago about it, as soon as you had like brought it up, and then it came into play a couple like a 1 or 2 sessions ago, but it wasn't until last session that someone else had brought it up, and I was like, oh, that would be interesting if either a more than one of us joined, or if the majority of us joined, and then it turned into a Cult of Mithras coterie. Like I think that that would be, I could not have predicted that happening when we started this game.
Oh, I would find it hilarious if the Anarch game turned out that nobody is Anarch by the end of it. But yeah.
But well, you yourself said there's 6 different outcomes for Fall of London. I don't know if everyone joining Cult of Mithras is one of them. Leave it to, organized chaos
Yeah,
to put a wrench in, 8 sessions in.
it's just gonna be spread across all factions in London to achieve. I think, and correct me right if I'm wrong. The only reason why you hesitated back initially was because I told you to just throw away humanity if you wanted to join the Cult of Mythos, and I think you had a desire and ambition to increase that at some point. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that was the start. I
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
increase it. But the cost, when I was looking at it, like for a while there, I think I was maybe one of the last people to spend my XP. And so I had just been accumulating it. And I'm like, and World of Darkness, it's like a gamble because you want to spend XP because you can use every part of your character sheet within a session, potentially, depending on how you play your cards. And so not spending your XP is really a delicate balance between you can put it into your character sheet and use it the next time you play, depending on how you play and what you're doing. But it's also possible that you could die before you get your XP just because, recently when we had that one game where Marie went to Ward and she had like 4 or 5 rolls that were all successes in a row. But those could have all been,
Gone terribly. Yeah.
they could, she could, I'm not saying she could have died, but I have seen Tremere get severely wounded by trying to do that level of warding or blood sorcery or tapping into their resources because the mechanics of Tremere is like
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
can go from another Tuesday to rolling your next character.
Yeah, and especially for her who's, well, she's concerned about her humanity. She does not have 3 or 4 blood slaves in the corner waiting to be tapped. So she's just, yeah, going with it. See what's up. But yeah, you're absolutely right. But sometimes people just accumulate it, and I don't think anyone knows this, but I starved you guys of XP when we began. None of you started with the Sea of Time, so I kind of took the 15 XP away from you to I don't know, kind of depict your very new status to this world, and also to make you rely on each other, and as an experiment. But yeah.
I think it's a valid thing to do, just for storytelling in general. When you're creating a character, you get fledglings get 7 dots, and then neonates get 7 dots and 15 XP, and then Insulae get 35 XP, I believe. And I think that it is a healthy thing. So when you're doing your character sheet, you can have leftover XP. You don't have to spend it all. You do have to spend your dots, but I think it is a healthy thing. Like even if you're playing Insulae, like usually people who want to play, not always, have a good understanding of the game, but you might not have a good understanding of the coterie. So it can be healthy to spend and say, like, okay, everyone start with 7 dots, wait, 1 or 2 sessions to spend your 15 XP or your 35, just so that you can get a good idea. Like, okay, I had 15, I wanted these backgrounds, but now I know this is going to be more in line with, political intrigue than it is combat. So I don't think I'm going to be using Mala, so I'm not going to buy one.
Yeah. It was also, I learned from my own mistakes from the Camarilla game. People had way too much. So I just wanted to scale it down a bit. Because by the end of the campaign or chronicle, people were way too powerful. At least in my mind. And it's the same with, for people who play both D&D and Vampire, once people get to a certain level, it becomes very hard to write for. Because you have to spend way more time to think about how hard an encounter is, and it becomes very like one rounded out kind of thing. Like everything will one hit you, and you will one hit everything, and that can be complicated.
I will say that is probably one of the things that I do like about D&D more. It's kind of like, this is your turn order, you're good. Whereas in VTM, you have 3 rounds. But the way you have to set certain things up, it's a little more clunky in my opinion.
Very clunky. Like, I think we had a combat where Dave, he commented on it after the session. It's like, I could hear your sigh. Like, I said something along the lines of, and then we're gonna do combat. And then that I felt defeated because I fucking hate rolling combat in VTM for some reason. It feels clunky, and I have not figured out a way to make it more smooth. Still a work in progress, and someday we'll get there. But I feel like the tension comes from conversation, and it's way more drama, political, and it's very different than your usual dungeon crawler and kicking the ass of some orcs.
I think that's where Mithras is an interesting add-in with this conversation, because Mithras is very much political intrigue, but there is no fighting, you just die.
Yeah.
There is no, you're either in or you're done. Like, that's what you sign up for.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Don't worry, the club does come with some benefits, but people will have to wait for that on the show, and it will stay between you and I what kind of benefits you get. So we'll figure out if it will ever show on screen, just so people can't really know what they'll get, but I'll make sure it's worth it.
I think one of the funny things, talking about notes, private, whatever, I do just stream of conscious notes, but also ADHD me. Sometimes I miss things, and it's funny because I'll post it for everybody, and occasionally there's mistakes, but then occasionally no one catches some of them, and then you've come in, you're like, this is not what I said. And I'm like, well, that's what I interpreted, so
it's perfect.
That's what we're going with.
It's perfect. It's like what came across, what did the player understand, and for everyone else who does not know, Emory, she writes pages of notes, or Rebecca for Emory every time, and it's really good, and it also hurt because the other players are like, fuck it, I'm not gonna do it because she covered everything, but I think it's fitting that the Nosferatu has all the information. I really love that, and thank you so much for doing that as a player. It really, really helps me out, because it's very different, the level of notes that people will take, and you have everything there, and there might be a name sometimes that's wrong, or some very tiny little detail, but it's fine. Then I can also look at it as like, okay, I'm gonna put emphasis on this, just so, and then it will be corrected. I really, really like that. And thank you again for doing it.
I will forget if I don't write things down, or I will, like, when it comes to saying questions like, did you meet this person? I'm like, I have no idea. Because
Mm.
that's the other thing that I love and loathe about games that, like, when you're talking about later levels, like, once you get to a point where you're months and, weeks and months and then over a year into a game, it's like, wait, who was this?
Yeah.
They come out of left field and it's like, well, shit, that was like 5 months ago, which is amazing. But also, it's like, who is important? Because everyone could be important. We just don't know. So you want to keep track of everything, but the human brain is just not possible. And so it's
No,
it's
like
an easy way to say.
even 50 vampires is hard to keep track of, but it also gives me an idea of who left an impression and why, and I can become a better storyteller because of that. And it's like, okay, I should do this and not that. Really, really helps. I feel like we could talk for hours, but it's late here and you have other things to do. So to kind of wrap this up and get on with our days, I want to say first of all, for a person who's been playing for like 2 years, freaking impressive. Like, you must have read a lot. I committed that to memory. Before we plug anything, because we probably have something, I always leave something for. This has gone very fluently, and we talk back and forth. But is there anything you would like me to answer? I just want to be fair here. It could be nothing, could be something, but I will answer anything.
Um, I don't know. I feel like I could ask questions as well for hours. I curious if are there knowing our backstories, are there any hooks between characters that have yet to be revealed? Or like things that would align us that we don't yet know?
Going through the library. I almost have to find my notes right now. I think there is something there. I can't say it with 100% certainty, but I think some people have certain flaws that might connect them. That's what comes to mind, and something that will haunt them at some point, because we're not quite into shit hits the fan territory. I think we're one third of the way through the story, but yeah, I think there are some connections there that will bring people closer together, or maybe split them apart.
And I guess the other question is, do you think that there are any characters that haven't connected, like RP wise, that you would like to see connect more? Like, because I see that like Marie and Emery have connected a few times because they have the tech thing, and I've seen like Luke and Leo, they're like Toreador and Toreador Prime, like not actually one's a Lasombra, but like I feel like they've had some back and forth. But are there any two that you're like these two haven't been able to connect? And in RP, I think that they could either debate or have some conflicting back and forth, like some really good RP based on their values, or like could really like if they put their heads together would really be fantastic.
I actually think you and Oliver. Uh, First of all, because the Mithras thing, which he's also interested in, at least in some
Yeah.
way. He has his own agenda, but so does your character. But I also think the brains and the brawn kind of combination would work really, really well. Because, as you said, Emery's not a fighter, but Oliver very much is. And if they can find some common ground, and I think they would make a powerhouse with no equal if they banded together.
I think that's the one thing that's been really I wouldn't say difficult. The majority of this group has played together before, so they're really good. And I played multiple like VTM games with different groups here and there, online, in person. This group is really good about meta. Even though we know we're all at the same table and you're telling us stuff, I don't know in character to what degree Oliver is invested in that.
Mm,
And they don't know to what degree I'm invested or connected to the Spy Master because it's been outside of
mm.
coterie time. And so like we don't know that Dave's been like sending messages to we don't know whom. So I feel like we all could collectively, band together. So it'll be interesting to see because I 100% agree that, both with the Mithras interest, I think that I 100% agree with you. It's just like how to connect that because in character I don't know much about them as uh, a smith, like a what are they? Do they have like a forge or whatever? Like they want a forge, right?
Yeah, they were a smith in real life, but obviously for some reason they can't handle fire anymore, and that's the goal for Oliver. I also think the thing that's gonna bring everyone together is fuck Victor, fuck the warlock. I think that's at some point you're gonna reach screw this guy. Even Oliver, who wants to deal with him, but as you said, no one else knows this. So it could
Yeah.
go both ways. He could screw you over tremendously at some point where you make a brilliant plan and then he tells the warlock. Or it could go the other way. It will be very interesting to see.
Love the interest. Yeah, I guess that's it for me for now.
Is there anything you want to plug? I'll leave it on the screen in the comments and everything. Socials or show or something.
I am on TikTok primarily. I make random TTRPG content occasionally and ask like questions, just random like TTRPG questions on Mimic for Hire. And then I do exclusive VTM content on Sire for Hire, just because it's a funny name. And then yeah, that's where you can primarily find me there. And then I do a lot of VTM where I got my start with St. Pete by Night. And so we will be moving into a coterie based system where we used to have a West Marches like LARP online digital LARP style. We're moving into coterie. So we have 7 or 8 storytellers running 2 to 3 games each every week. And so all of those will be, or the majority will be streamed on St. Pete by Night. There's 5 seasons of videos on YouTube, St. Pete by Night. It is everywhere on social media, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. And I will be storytelling one game over there. It will not be streamed, but it will probably be recorded and posted to YouTube. But I'll be running I called it the Good Girl's Blood, and so if you're my player, don't watch this. But they're all connected to a university, and they're what they think they're starting to do is investigate some difficulties with the circulatory system.
Hmm.
And a venture is going to be telling them that they need to make sure that the venture's picky palates are accommodated for, but they're having some difficulty with that, and so I'm going to be I'm going to be acquiring kind of a Delta Green scenario and taking them in a different direction where they're all going to be confronted with the Cult of the Broken branch, which is in the Cult of the Blood Gods, and it's specific to a university where it's kind of like they acquire college students, kind of like a fraternity.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be kind of, put into the position of coterie versus Camarilla, and similar to what's happening in our game. Where is your priority or your loyalty going to lie, and that'll be interesting for that. And so you'll see that on YouTube, and that'll be the game to follow. Otherwise, on this server, I'll be running one shots soon. So if you're interested in playing VTM, I'm gonna be running two probably 2 games a month, or it'll be a 1 game 2 session situation where the first maybe Friday, I haven't picked a day yet,
Hmm.
you'll go through how to build the character sheet for hunter or vampire and eventually werewolf, and then being able to learn how to play the game. building the character sheet for 1 day, and then playing it in a one shot 2 weeks from that.
Okay.
And so yeah, just join the Discord and
Anyone can
check out
apply?
that. Anyone who's on there, you just sign up, and you don't have to have any experience. Like I said, we've had over 100 players on St. P by Night over the past 2 years playing that. We are demoing or kind of doing a slow rollout of Werewolf the Apocalypse because we want to make sure that the lead storyteller understands the mechanics
Yeah.
before we have other storytellers taking it on. So while there's many people who are interested in Werewolf, we as storytellers need to make sure that we know the game before we have players coming in.
Easy now. Just came out. Easy now. Takes a while.
Just free for all, just whatever you want,
Fair enough.
So yeah, that's it.
I'll leave that all below, and some of it I'll consider actually making it friends of the channel because it sounds really interesting, and could be fun to do some crossover or some, at least drop some hints somewhere.
And we have people from around the world playing, so we have games at different times to accommodate different time zones because we understand that, it might be easy to get a game, but getting one at the time zone that's not like, 2 to 5 a.m. would be difficult. So, I previously, in our previous, I would do 5 a.m. my time, which would be like, yeah. But that's because that's like when I can wake up.
Yeah.
So I would do, a 2-hour session, and that'd be fine. And that would get, after work EU time zone.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Well,
Yeah.
Rough to get up that early. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to what the other individuals will come up with during their interview.
Yeah, well, I hope I could get them on, for sure. Get all of them on, all my players past and present. It's always interesting to hear. But thank you so much again, and thanks everyone at home for listening. Bye bye.
Until next time. Bye.